In today's lesson, I am going to show you how to design a beautiful church flyer like this. So without much ado, let's get into the desktop and see how this is done. Now, if you are new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. By subscribing, you will stay updated with our latest content and join our creative community. Click that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and never miss out on our exciting tutorials and content. Thank you for your support. Together, we will keep the creativity flowing. Now, the first thing to do is to choose our canvas size. You click on new file. Now, I am going with inches. So I will change it from pixels to inches. I'm going with a width of 10 inches and a height of 10 inches with a resolution of 300. Then I will click on the create. Now, if you want to follow suit, I will leave a link to the resources in the description. Download the resources and follow along. Now I have my canvas size. The next thing to do is to apply a solid color. So I will click on this button, then I will select solid color. Then I will choose a color with the hex code. Then I'm going by this hex code 00253E. So this is the color that I'm going to use with the hex code 00253E. I click on OK. Now I have my solid color. The next thing I'm going to do is to introduce background images. Now the first thing is that I will drag in this Bible into my interface. Let me place it somewhere here. Drag it a bit. Good. I will then add a layer mask to the image. I'll then take my brush tool. Make sure it is a soft brush. You pick a soft brush. Now let me increase the size of the brush by clicking on the right bracket key. You can reduce it by clicking on the left bracket key. So let me increase it by clicking on the right bracket key. Now the next thing is that I'm going to white off the unwanted part of the image because those sides look so sharp and hard. So now if you look at my layer mask, it's having a color of white, so I have to make sure that my foreground color is black. Don't forget that black hides and white reveals. So I will white off the unwanted part of my Bible. Then let me click on Ctrl T to increase the size of the Bible. Beautiful. Then the next thing is to reduce the resolution so it blends beautifully with the background color. The next thing I'm going to do is to introduce this image here. Let me increase the size of the image, drag it to the right hand side here. Change the blending mode from normal to luminosity. Then the next thing I'm going to do is to add the layer mask and clean the unwanted parts of the image so that it blends beautifully with the background. The next thing I'm going to do is to reduce the opacity so that it blends well with the background color. Beautiful. The next thing I'm going to do is to add some text to my background. So I will put the 3 layers. I will click on Shift, click on the bottom layer and the upper layer, Ctrl J, and I'll call this one the background. The next thing I'm going to do is to bring my imaginary lines to guide me in my design. So I will take this rule, put it at 50, and the horizontal one also at 50. You can activate the rules by clicking on Ctrl+R. I will take my ellipse tool and draw a beautiful ellipse. As I'm drawing the ellipse, I will place my hand on the Shift and the Alt key so that it gives me a perfect circle. Now I'm going to fill the ellipse tool with a white color and I'll make sure that it is not having any stroke. I am using Photoshop 2022 version. Beautiful. So this is my ellipse. The next thing I'm going to do is to duplicate the ellipse by pressing on Ctrl J. Now I have two ellipse, ellipse 1 and ellipse 1 copy. Now I will press on Ctrl T to free transform the ellipse. Then I will redo the size of the first. Now I will redo the size of the second ellipse. Then I'll double click to accept the changes. I will now select the two ellipse, ellipse 1 and ellipse 2. Then I will move straight to my layer panel here. Then I'll go straight to what is known as combine shapes. Then I will subtract the front shape. So I'll get something beautifully like this. The next thing I'm going to do is to draw another ellipse at the center here. Make sure your cursor is at the center of the two imaginary lines. With Shift and Alt press, I'll draw something beautifully like this. Now this ellipse I'm drawing is not going to have any fill, so it's going to have an empty fill. And I'll choose a stroke with a yellow color. A stroke with a yellow color. And I'll put the stroke at level 10. Enter. I think that is very small. Let me increase the size of the stroke. I think something like this is okay and it looks so beautiful. I will now select the two ellipses and shift them to this side of the canvas so that the images of the pastels will be at this side. Now the next thing I'm going to do is that I am going to convert this two into a smart object. That is to merge the two images together. Now I will take my lasso tool and cut a portion of the ellipse I have drawn. So I'll click on one side here, click on this side, I will click on this side, move to this side here, then I'll make a selection. Then I will rasterize the ellipse now, then I will cut that portion away. I'll then take my rectangle tool and draw a beautiful rectangle with a yellow fill to touch the two edges of the ellipse, something like this. Then I'll select the same color and I'll make sure that it is not having any stroke. So I'll have something like this. I will now add the images of my pastels. So I will go into my resources and select the first female pastel here. Then I'll rasterize the image, go to my properties panel, then select remove background. Once the background is beautifully removed, I will now convert the layer into a smart object. If possible, rasterize the layer, shift the image to this side and position it beautifully at that side. Let me tilt it a bit to the right. The next thing to do is to introduce the male pastel. Let me reduce the size of the image, rasterize the image, go to my properties panel and click on remove background. Once the background of the image is removed, I will right click on the layer and convert it to a smart object. I will then place this image behind the first image to have something beautiful as this. Let me put the lady to the bottom a bit and increase the size of the man. Ctrl T to free transform the female pastel, increase the size of the female pastel to have something beautiful like this. The next thing is to add some text. So I will select my text to click anywhere on the image, and the name of the font I am using is called the Aurora Bold. So the first thing is a special invitation to our. So I'll position this beautifully on the yellow rectangle, something like this. Then increase the width of the special invitation to, let's say, 125 to have something. We then position it in the rectangle to look more beautiful. I will select my text tool again and type Sunday. So it's a special invitation to Sunday, to our Sunday worship. I will click on Ctrl T to free transform the Sunday to have something beautiful as this. Now I will duplicate the Sunday, Ctrl and J on my keyboard, drag the second Sunday to the bottom. Then I will edit the Sunday into worship to have something beautiful as I have done here. So I'll have something beautiful like this. The next thing I'm going to do is to put the worship and the Sunday into a group. So I will select the two, Ctrl J on the keyboard to put the two into a group. Then I will call this one Sunday worship. The next thing I'm going to do is to introduce this yellow image here. Place it on top of my Sunday. Reduce the size of it so that it covers the Sunday entirely. The next thing is to use this as a clipping marks on the text. The next thing I'm going to do is to draw beautiful rectangles for the date and the time. I will now take my ellipse to increase the size of my canvas. Then I will draw a small rectangle here to underline my text. It's going to have a fill of yellow and no stroke. So I will now have something like this. I would like to pick the color from my design so that it matches exactly what I am doing. Good. The next thing I'm going to do is to extend the length of the P so that it touches the line that I have drawn. So I will go into my font. Then I will select the worship. Right click on the worship and convert it to shape. Then I will move to my tools panel. Then I will select the direct selection tool. Now with my direct selection tool, I will then highlight the bottom of the P, then press the down arrow key to extend it. Beautiful. So the P touches the line that I have drawn. I will then highlight the bottom part of the R. Click on the down arrow key so that it also joins the line that I have drawn. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to add another text. And this time around I'm going to write wait. And I'm going to change the font from Aurora to Taken by Voices. So I will then position my my width here. I will then position my width at this side and choose a color of white. I will then click on the bold T here to increase the size of the font, then increase the width of the font, open it a bit, then position it beautifully at this side. Use the down arrow key to bring it to the side. The next thing is to add the names of the pastors. And I'm going to use the font, that same font, Aurora. And I'm going to type the name Tim Brooks, Tim and Jesse Brown. Beautiful. Then I'll position the name of the two pastors at the side. Let me push the weight good. So I'll have something like this. Let me increase the size of the name so that it matches with the theme. The next thing is to draw two rectangles for the date and the time. So I'll draw the first rectangle like this. I'll make the color yellow and I will give it, I will duplicate this shape. So this is the first rectangle that I have drawn, and I'll make sure it is not having any stroke. The next thing is to duplicate this by pressing Ctrl J on the keyboard. I'll press Ctrl T on the keyboard and push this one to this side and reduce the size of this. Position it back at its position here. The next thing is to select the bigger rectangle, this one, and adjust it here. It's too long. Ctrl T on the keyboard. With the shift key press, I will adjust the length of the rectangle. I will then reduce the fill to 0 and give it a stroke of, let's say, 15. 15 is too much. Let me make it 10. 10 is too much. Let's go with something like 7. Okay, 7 is okay. Let me increase the size of the first triangle a bit to have something like this. Good. The next thing I'm going to do is to duplicate the two rectangles and interchange their position. So with the two rectangles selected, I will press Ctrl J on the keyboard. I'll then drag the two rectangles to the bottom. Now I'll shift this one to this side here. Make sure it aligns perfectly with the first rectangle. Then I'll shift this one also to this side to have something like this. With Ctrl T press on the keyboard, I will then adjust the size of this one to meet this one. I will then press the arrow keys to make sure it touches the first one. With the second rectangle, I will increase the length so that it touches this one. Now the first text with the same font is time. It's time. Then I will place my time here, Ctrl T. Then I will adjust the size of the time and change the font color to black. I will duplicate the time and shift it to the bottom here and edit the text to date. The date is going to have a color of white. Now let me add the time and the date. Isn't this beautiful? The next thing I'm going to do is to add some lens flare to my titles here. So I'll go to my resources and I'll select this lens flare here. Place it on my, reduce the size of the lens flare. Place it on my text here. Then I will change the blending mode from normal to screen. Normal to screen. I don't like the edges of the lens flare. I will add my layer mask, take my brush, then erase the hard edges of the lens flare to have something like this. I'll then press Ctrl T on the keyboard to free transform my lens flare to have something beautiful as this. I'll then convert this one to a smart object, rasterize the layer, go to my filters, blur, Gaussian blur to make the light pop out beautiful like this. I think this is okay. The next thing is to add the title of the church. Now let me add the logo of the church. I'll then add these beautiful curtains at the back of the male pastor here. Let me adjust the shape, drag it to this side, reduce the size, drag the layer downwards so that it will be at the back of the male pastor. Something like this. Good. So let me adjust the position so I will have something beautiful as this. Isn't this beautiful?